Right now, standing by with founder of Sakhumzi restaurant, Sakhumzi. Cindy, what do you have?
Good morning again, and thank you so much, William, and good morning again to our viewers. For those who've just joined us, it is the Youth Day edition of the South African Morning. We're here in Vilakazi Street. As we mentioned, it was named after Dr. Benedict Vilakazi, a scholar, a prolific poet, and also the first black person to achieve a PhD in 1946. It is about a rich history that we're celebrating, also commemorating the youth of 1976 and, giving our gratitude, paying homage to the personal sacrifices that they made. We know that there were lives lost, there was blood that was spilled so that we can enjoy the freedom as a democratic South Africa. We're joined now by Sakhumzi Maqubela, who is the owner and founder of Sakhumzi, an establishment that started in 2001 from humble beginnings to where it is today. It is a destination of choice for tourists. It is one of those that you have to put on your bucket list. And Sakhumzi, you need no introduction, but thank you so much for hosting us and for joining us so early in the morning.
Good morning to you, Cindy, and the ENCA viewers. And happy Youth Day.
Happy Youth Day indeed. You yourself as a young person in 1976, if you can give us a recollection of the day, albeit that many of us were pretty young at the time. We know about June 16, 1976 out of the history books or as it's orated from our elders. Tell us about your recollection of what June 16 means to you.
To me, June 16 is a day where us as South Africans and our youth as well, they need to remember what really happened. We've got our new South Africa today. Here in Vilakazi Street, things were happening in the 1976 uprisings where Hector Peterson got to be shot. So to me, he's like our Jesus who died for our sins. So if we are not doing anything about the blood that was shed in the 1976 and many others that were never mentioned who passed away in 1976 on the 16th of June, we need to grow as South Africans. We can't be stumbling in one place. We need to know the sacrifices that happened, and we start focusing on what we have, working with what we have to move forward.
Yes, and you're saying that the symbolism or the symbolic of the Messiah in the ones that lost their lives, Hector Peterson being, of course, the most prolific or prominent in that struggle, but there were many others who lost their lives. So this is an opportunity for us to reconcile and use the trauma and the pain of the past so that we can engineer or re-engineer a community or society that we want to see. Your own history starts from very humble beginnings, albeit that you find yourself literally nestled amongst two of the world laureates with Dr. Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And here, Vilakazi Street is not short of luminaries, people who are high achievers, but that also used their adversities to become the champions of South Africa. What inspires you around Vilakazi Street, which has shaped who you are?
What inspired me is our leaders, as you have said. We are in a noble street. Your Archbishop Desmond Tutu, what comes to my mind, there's a nice book he has written talking about joy and happiness. Most of us, we don't know what is joy, what is happiness. When they've got time, they need to go and read that book that the Archbishop has written. And we are in Vilakazi Street. What inspired me is I cannot, when I'm next door the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, up the road, a stone throw away from the former President Nelson Mandela, and in the famous Vilakazi Street where Hector Peterson passed away, and not do anything about the history that I have. I believe each and every human being, you've got your own inheritance. But because we are an angry nation that is led by people who don't know who they are, I mean, even corporate South Africa, our South African, we are our worst critics. We always criticize ourselves. We even write as journalists or as editors that we are a failing state. South Africa is number 2, if not number 3, in Africa. We've been growing for the past 30 years. So we need to look at the brighter side. Yes, we might be having your load shedding, your potholes, but load shedding does happen even in first world countries, even in Germany, even in your Venezuela, we do have load shedding, but what can we do to work with what we have, as we have done it at Sakhumzi? We started with 4 people, we ended up with 110 people. Indirect jobs that were created in Vilakazi Street, it's more than 1,000 jobs because we've got more than 10 restaurants, people selling craft, we have B&Bs around.
Yes. And I want to just touch back on what you were saying about knowing who you are. There's a song by Uthandiswa Mazwai that says, Nizilibele uba nizalwa ngobani, because when you don't know what your destiny or your purpose or your even history, the name of Sakhumzi in itself carries a lot of weight. It means that you are the one that builds the home, you build the nation. And even Malcolm Gladwell in the book Outliners speaks exactly about that. When you look around you, there are people who inspire you. There are things that you can use, albeit you might have limited resources, but nonetheless you are destined for greatness.
When you know who you are, as you are saying, you go a long way. As you said, uzalwa ngubani. If you don't know your father, you don't know your mom, as it's going to be Father's Day, I appeal to fathers. Let them play their part. When you are there for your children, your children grow automatically. My firstborn is an attorney. She works for a pharmaceutical company. My secondborn is an accountant. She works for an investment company. The thirdborn is finishing some IT course. She's doing very well, passing 95%. So with June 16, we need to say to our youth, they need to pass with 100%. If they pass with 30%, how will they perform where they are working? It's not a miracle that this restaurant is always full house. Come in the next 2 hours. I can proudly say we are fully booked. Try and use other restaurants because we need to pass with 100% from school. So we have an opportunity. We are in June now. Parents, let them make time to look at the books. You can see it's wrong. It's wrong. Read a question. Make time for your children so that they can do well.
Yeah. Now, Saki, another thing is also getting South Africans to embrace these very significant days, okay, June 16 and other holidays, maybe your reconciliation days, so that we reflect the diversity in the multiculturalism that we have. But often they're not, especially when there are rallies and that you don't see the true rainbow nation, so to speak. Do you think that there is an opportunity for all of us not only to reflect on the past, but to also to reconcile, galvanize around it, and use this to build a more united, cohesive society?
On that note, is for me what comes to my mind is we have a beautiful country, and when people travel, all these other countries, your France, they are selling their history. You go to China, we always brag about China. They know who they are, as you have said. It's their history. We have rich history. You go to the stadium, they sing 1 or 2 songs. When you go to Limpopo, they've got many songs. When you go to Eastern Cape, they've got many songs. So it's high time that big corporate companies align with small business so that we can work together, so that we can be able to create more jobs. When people are not working, people are gonna start revolting. Then it's gonna be a disaster. Unemployment has gone up with recession. We had COVID-19. What is it that big corporate companies are doing to work with small business so that this country of ours can move forward?
Mm-hmm. And one thing you were saying about young people, the inclusivity of or being united in diversity, as we call it, South Africa being alive with possibilities. But you do hear from certain quarters that says there is no future for white young people, for example, or that these days are typically only focused on the black, contribution to where we are as a nation. How do we inspire that sense of unity among South Africans, albeit we do have our challenges, as you mentioned?
You know, if you travel, for me, I'm in tourism. I get to be in France. I see people are in riots. I get to be in Germany. I get to be traveling all over the world. We have the best country here. We are our own critics. And you can't criticize a beautiful country with beautiful humans that we have in South Africa. But if you are coming from a good home, that is why we are saying, who are you? Uzalwa ngubani? If you know your father, if you know your grandfather, you won't let them down. So there's no black and white in South Africa. That's why the Archbishop Desmond Tutu said we are a rainbow nation. Let's look at the positive side. If people are employed, we can't say we are free when people are unemployed. What is it that these big corporates are doing under their environmental, social governance, under their enterprise development program, so that they help small business to be strong? Because in Europe, in America, most small businesses are the ones that are creating more jobs and maintaining those jobs.
All right, we'll speak to you again in a bit, but thank you so much for being such a gracious host. We even had coffee being brought here by Usisneli. The hospitality here is par excellence, the warmth, ubuntu, and just the sheer love and appreciation that we have for you. Sakhumzi Maqubela, the owner of Sakhumzi. As he mentioned, if you think of coming to Sakhumzi today, best you make alternative arrangements. He is fully booked with international revelers and travelers coming here, and in fact, domestic travelers as well. So thank you for staying with us here on the June 16 edition of the South African Morning. It's back to you in studio.
Thank you, Cindy. We are commemorating 47 years of the youth uprising, which happened today in 1976 in Soweto. Of course, there were similar protests around the country, but about 500 youths were shot by the apartheid police in Gauteng, which was then known as the Transvaal. We're going to